confidence and the means to work on an issues base and actually see something coming out of that. Again, rather than the party structure and the comfort zone of, if you like, that elected dictatorship was a very, very powerful phrase. The comfort zone of that and the party, and if you like, that macho obsession with keeping a grip on power and being able to enforce your will on others without allowing others to somehow or other alter that or trammel it or improve it or ameliorate it, to be able to enforce that, that is dictatorship, that is vile. And there is a sense of, as we move forward with our politics, and for us, with decentralised socialism, that we hold these debates and that we put ourselves at risk, and some of the things that we could be safe doing is actually really, really essential for our future.
Thank you, Liz. Clive, final words?
Final words. I think if you look at a map of the United Kingdom, there's a line that runs kind of diagonally through it. And on one side, you have what you would call the low church, and on the other side, what was the high church 200 years ago. And the voting, the way that first past the post has kind of concentrated that. It basically means that the Tories have dominated, the high church Tories have dominated in the kind of south-east, below that line, and then the kind of non-conformist low church have kind of dominated Northern England, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. And what did for the Liberals, you could argue, was the basically at the start of the 20th century was the breakup of Ireland, and those 80 MPs, many of them Liberals, who basically then went out of Parliament and became part of the Irish state, and Labour then stepped in, and Labour's road to power has always been through Scotland. And Scotland, if you've been following recent events, is kind of on course for what is in effect part of the breakup of the United Kingdom as it's currently configured. You know, people have a right to exist, not countries, and I think if you look throughout history, that's very much the case. And so I think for Labour, someone mentioned, if Labour doesn't grip this situation, doesn't grip constitutional and voting reform in a meaningful way, rather than just trying to keep the show on the road, then I think there is a real case, a real argument that Labour will struggle to form a government again. And I think there is also a real distinct possibility, and it's not beyond, I think, happening, where you could envisage a new Tory party leadership, perhaps to the right, who knows, who say, we don't really give a damn about Scotland being part of the United Kingdom. They don't want to be in it. Fine. They'll do a deal with the SNP. They'll get over the line, and they'll say to the SNP, you can go your way, just help us get through Parliament a new constitutional settlement. And it will lock out the centre and the left for a long time. The SNP, I mean, look, I've got no issue with the SNP, I really don't. But do I think they'd be happy? Do I think they would, exchange independence for having what would be a political crack den below their flat? Possibly, yes. I think they might. I think that's a real danger.
Yeah. And I think to be fair on the SNP, it's in their constitution that they will not work with the Tories.
Well, okay, but you know what? I'd like to see if that constitutional change took place, if they were offered independence on the plate by a Tory party that wanted to basically secure England and Wales and Northern Ireland in some kind of new union for itself. It's hypothetical, but you know what? If I told you 10 years ago we'd be rolling out of the European Union, you'd probably have laughed at me. So what I will say or conclude on is, I'm a democratic socialist. I don't think capitalism offers any of the answers for dealing with the climate crisis. It's a very simple point that I will put forward there. And I think if we are to survive as a global civilization through the 21st century, then we will need to bring people along with us. And that will mean more socialism and more democracy. And the starting point of those dominoes tipping over, for me, the democratic socialist, is PR. And I think it's something that an increasing number of fellow socialists and social democrats and democratic socialists and liberals and greens and so on and many others are now beginning to understand is integral for a democracy that can weather the perma-crisis that is now upon us.
Thank you. And Dave, would you like to have any final comments and final words?
Yeah, so I think, sum up for me, an electoral system that devalues the votes of some and puts kind of catnip around the votes of others will struggle to produce a just and equitable solution to a climate crisis that is built on top of structural inequality. And developing a platform and a consensus that's necessary for the radical change to our economy and our society will be made, that we need to tackle climate change, will be that much harder based on a voting system that pushes two parties to fight over stealing a minority of votes from each other in a minority of seats, rather than addressing the long-term needs of the whole population and the disproportionate impact that the climate crisis is having on the marginalised. That doesn't mean that they can never do it, and they don't do it, and the politicians don't try to do it, but it's like rubbing a cat backwards, or rubbing a cat's fur backwards, and we need an electoral system that helps that rather than hinders that, and so that's why Friends of the Earth is supporting proportional representation.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to do a quick wrap up. I'd like to say a massive thank you to all of the panel. Thank you so much for being here and your very enjoyable contributions as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, this is a very serious and sometimes very depressing topic about climate crisis, but there's some really wonderful comments made, and I think it helps us move along the way to doing something about it. Thank you also to everybody in the audience, both in the room and online. Your support and activism for bringing in a real democracy that can best tackle the climate crisis is invaluable. Please keep up the work and join us at our parliamentary lobby to sort the system on the 24th of May. This is a big collaboration with lots of allies, some of whom are in the room. We've got Unlock Democracy and Compass at least, and I'm sure there's people from EOS and other organisations around as well. So it's going to be a very big event, so do get involved. And I think that's what gives us the hope. Like, if we go and talk to all of the MPs, or at least as many of them as we damn well can talk to, it's going to have a real impact. So do come along. Finally, massive thanks to the team. Steve has worked incredibly hard to put this event on. Thank you very much, Steve, and to all of the rest of the team who's worked with him, and Fred filming at the moment. You're all stars. And everyone is now welcome to continue these conversations with us over a few drinks at the Two Chairmen pub round the corner. So I hope to see lots of you there. Thanks very much for coming.